So just to recap, we basically came up with the whole definition of how the exposure triangle works, reminding that basically we are interested in this simple math where we want to be able to get the irradiance times the time and use that to generate the exposure. Irradiance is controlled by the aperture opening, and by lowering the f-stops doubles the exposure as the aperture is open more, and by lowering 2 f-stops doubles depth of field. So this is basically kind of the impact we're looking at throughout. That by playing around with how the f-stops change, we can actually impact the size of the aperture opening that impacts what the image would look like. And sometimes by playing around with this, we can actually see impacts on things like depth of field, and similarly for shutters and stuff like that. I showed you many examples in this lecture for you to kind of now take it in and play around with your own cameras. Of course, not all cameras allow you to have this kind of control. These days, even mobile cell phone cameras do have some code available for you to play around and change the aperture and shutter speeds and stuff like that. And we'll try to make them available, but feel free to discuss them amongst yourselves and find other examples of this kind of stuff. Of course, most of the examples I showed you were generated using high-end SLR cameras. In the previous slide, I talked about the change of aperture, and now, of course, exposure time controlled by shutter speed. When you double this, the time the shutter is open, well, your exposure is doubled also. When you double T, well, it might actually also double motion blur. And of course, when you take ISO, you're doubling ISO basically needs half the light to be able to generate a similar type of an image.